They metaphorically did arts and crafts together. I don't think you would have to paint your banister every single year. This is the second time I've almost had an existential crisis. You should just get better quality paint. Lana. My interpretation of this whole song just changed drastically. This is turning into a bit of a chaotic interpretation. This song means so much more now. Hi everyone, welcome to this video. On my channel, I analyze song lyrics very in depth through the lens of literary analysis. Today we're analyzing the song Blue Banisters by Lana Del Rey. I apologize for not posting in a sec. I have an explanation. If you care, keep watching. If not, I get it. Please use the timestamps below. Okay, so I actually did film a lot since I posted my analysis of the song Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift. I recorded like 4.5 times, but they were all very bad. Tried to do my setup differently so I could improve and just be better. There were just a lot of tech issues. I will share with you a very fun anecdote. One of the videos that I filmed, I got new lights that you can adjust the height of and you angle it down or above or whatever. I'm new to this, right? I'm new to trying to make things look good on camera. I recorded the whole video. When I was watching it back to start to edit it, there was a shadow on my face. Guess what was casting the shadow? Guess. Leave a comment below. I'm not kidding, by the way. I'm not making this hyperbolic. What was casting the shadow were my eyelashes. I didn't know that was a problem that I even had to think about. So the whole time that I was talking, it was just, I guess the angle was very specific. The whole time I was talking, every single time I blink, a shadow moved right here. And excuse me, I was not aware that my drugstore mascara was gonna make my lashes so voluminous that it would cast such a large shadow on my face. So that's a fun little story time for y'all. I hope you enjoy that. I hope you don't regret not using the timestamps below. But yeah, let's just dive right in. I'm still using the same mascara, but I really love this song. I love it too much because it's very, very sad, but I still listen to it on repeat very, very often. It's a very intimate sort of thing because it's a beautiful piece of prose set to music. I talk about this often on my channel about how specificity brings forth intimacy and relatability. Even though I can't relate exactly to what Lana Del Rey is saying, I still feel more connected to the song because it's so specific. You can see a movie in your head, but it's a movie that is filmed with intention. There is a mindfulness to the imagery, to the movie being played. It's a movie that's very mindful of the angles it's using, of the color composition. That's the vibe I get from this song. It's a diary entry set to music. It's a very sad diary entry, but it's very beautiful, kind of haunting in a way as well. I think that word choice is very important. For that reason, on my channel, I tend to concentrate on diction, which is word choice, and connotation, which can be thought of as the vibes or the emotions that the words elicit. As a reminder, everything presented in this video is my own personal opinion. Music is very subjective. Everyone's gonna have their own take on it. I encourage you all to comment down below what yours is. Let's get started. This song is called Blue Banisters. If you watch my channel, you probably know that I tend to interpret things very metaphorically. That's just my natural inclination. However, for this song, I don't really think there's a metaphorical aspect to the term blue banisters. There could be, and I can discuss that in a second, but for me, there isn't. Just want to let y'all know that my interpretation of this song and how metaphorical I think it is a complete 180 about halfway through the chorus. As you'll see right now, I'm going to talk about how I interpret the song title more literally. However, about halfway through the chorus, I have a couple epiphanies and a mild existential crisis. I think I'm okay now. A banister is a part of a staircase. It's the part that you hold on to come down. So it's a pretty important part, kind of relying on it for stability and for balance. What I think is significant about that metaphorically is it can help you balance on your way down or on your way up. For me though, this song title is more literal. Throughout this song, Lana talks about how her former love interest wanted to come and paint her banisters for her. What I think this song title is a very real conversation that was had. Blue banisters are taken, they're plucked out of their actual dialogue. That conversation has become a definition for their relationship. It's just something that an emotion is tied to now. In life, we define things, whether we're aware of it or not. We can assign a value and meaning to anything. To me, that conversation about her partner wanting to help her paint her banisters, I think of it as like a promise that never came to fruition. Verse 1. There's a picture on the wall of me on a John Deere. Jenny handed me a beer, said, "How the hell did you get there?" Oklahoma. The protagonist here is standing in front of a picture on her wall. I would imagine like the camera angle, if this was a movie, to be coming in like right here. Like pretend that you're the wall, you're the picture, y'all are John Deere, and I'm looking at you and I'm just like overcome with emotion. It's a very dramatic. The main focus would be mostly the picture on the wall, but the audience would see like this part of the protagonist's face. That's how I'm like viewing it if this was a movie. I hope that made sense. The protagonist is in another world immersed in this picture and her friend's like, "Girl, why are you like on a tractor?" John Deere is a brand. It's a company that makes agricultural machinery, like tractors, things you would use on your lawn and garden, and even things used in construction. Jenny, the friend, is really shook that the protagonist is on a John Deere. This shows us that this is out of character for the protagonist. What I gather from this is that perhaps the protagonist got to know a different side of herself through this past relationship. She had new experiences. I'm assuming she learned more about herself and maybe got out of her comfort zone. This could explain a little bit about why she feels so distraught at some points in this song about the relationship ending. And once her friend asks her that, I love the way that Lana sings this. It's very dreamlike. It's kind of like the protagonist is within that time, within those memories, within that picture, kind of in a dreamlike state. The way she sings Oklahoma is just very beautiful. It feels like this. It's like the protagonist is in two worlds at once. The beer was handed to her, so she's like physically present in this world, in this time, but her mind and perhaps her soul, they're in another time, in a time when that picture was taken. So that's kind of what's happening narrative wise. So there's a few things that I think we need to discuss. I'm making the assumption that this picture was taken during the protagonist's relationship with her romantic partner. I'm assuming that a majority of the relationship, if not all of it, took place in Oklahoma. I did do a quick Google search and Lana Del Rey, I guess one of her ex-boyfriends, is from there. I don't like to analyze people's personal lives too much unless they talk about it explicitly themselves. I like to respect it as much as I can. After you listen to the song, you know that this relationship is one that is in the past. The fact that the protagonist has a picture on the wall of her home that reminds her so intensely of that relationship is significant. Again, after you listen to the song, you can tell that there's a lot of pain here, but the protagonist, despite the pain, is still hanging up a picture in her home that reminds her of that time. This to me suggests that even though it was painful, it was something very, very meaningful. Sometimes some people like to have reminders of the fact that they experienced something. It shows you that at one moment in time, you had something, you had access to something substantial. So usually if you're completely over something, or if you literally don't care about it, you will get rid of all remnants of it from your life. Maybe you'll save something in a memory box, but you wouldn't put something in your house where you would see it often. This to me is showing that there is unresolved feelings here. She's not over it, or there's just an attachment to a possibility. Maybe this is some sort of validation that she was so close to having it, to having a perfect ending with someone. So there's many different ways to consider it. For me, I think that humans do things for reasons that are complicated. It's like a kaleidoscope of emotions and reasons. I think what the relationship represents to her, some part of it is something that she still wants. Maybe it isn't even about the person she was with. Maybe it was just about the love she had. Maybe it was the fact that someone was promising her kids in a future, as we'll see later in this song. She was so close to that. For some people, having a reminder of a perfect almost up on your wall may be devastating and unimaginable, but for others it may be a source of comfort, a melancholy sort of comfort, but it's reassurance and validation that you were close to it once. This reminds me of a song I analyzed, the song August by Taylor Swift. I will link every video that I mentioned down below for you in case you'd like to watch it. That song, it's about a summer romance that wasn't gonna last. The protagonist really wanted it to. They were definitely in it more than the love interest. There's a lyric that says, "Wanting was enough. For me, it was enough." That's very sad. For them, the experience was so much and they felt so strongly for the other person that the hope, the maybe, the baseless maybe was enough to fill them up completely. Sometimes empty promises are still very important to people and they hold on to them very dearly because unfortunately it's the closest thing they have to any sort of promise. I hope that made sense. It makes sense to me, but let me know if you agree or not down below in the comments. This also suggests to me that the protagonist is no longer in Oklahoma. If this is about Lana or the protagonist we've had in other songs I've analyzed, I'm assuming she's back in Southern California, which is very different than Oklahoma. Verse 2. There were flowers that were dry, sitting on the dresser. She asked me where they're from. I said, "A place I don't remember." Oh, Oklahoma. There were flowers that were dry, sitting on the dresser. I personally enjoy that imagery. I love interiors. I do think this is a different moment in time. Her friend is there again. I'm assuming those flowers were given to her by her romantic partner at one point. Felt very strongly about her love interest, so she kept those flowers. That's why they're dry. Another thing I want to know about dry flowers in general is that it's such a bittersweet image because it really shows the passage of time. It's kind of like a fossil, like an extra cute fossil, but there are so many memories that those flowers hold. When you had those flowers, when they were given to you, there was a lot of movement and liveliness associated with it. I'm assuming there was a love and romance and like flirtations associated with it. But now the image of dry flowers, it feels stagnant. It feels heavier. I'm assuming it can be a very heartbreaking image. All of those flirtations, all of those perhaps like romantic nervous giggles are gone now, and they're replaced by a very deep sort of sadness and a very heavy sort of resolve on part of the protagonist, and we'll see that throughout the song. I just wanted to point that out. I think when you really think about what dry flowers look like, it's very emotional. When you look at dried flowers and you compare it side by side to like their original form, there's definitely a difference, right? There's beauty in both, but metaphorically, it can be heavy. Dried flowers, I sometimes view as a clock being broken. It's at a standstill. I would imagine perhaps if you're still in that relationship, it wouldn't feel as heavy. It would just serve as a very beautiful reminder. It would make you smile and maybe just let out a sweet sigh, and you can be all nostalgic in a cute way. But if it's about a lost love, if it's about someone who's no longer in your life, I think that holds a lot of like heavy energy. I'm gonna stop talking about dried flowers. If you watch this channel, you know that I can talk a lot about nature imagery. So I'm gonna stop myself here, but leave me a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts about this. This is another display representing that relationship in her home. Your home is your sacred space. If there's something there that you don't like, if there's a painting that you don't like anymore or makes you feel a certain way, you take it down. After you break up, you're gonna take down the pictures you had with your ex-partner. You wanna feel at ease in your home. Not only does she have a picture of her on that John Deere, but she also has flowers that she was given. That's even more heartbreaking because the act of giving flowers to your romantic partner is romantic. It's intimate. And she's keeping it in a very intimate location on her dresser. It's in her room. A dresser is where you keep your clothes, so you're gonna go to your dresser at least once or twice a day. Right? Constant reminder. I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't know how big her room is, but I would imagine anywhere you sit or like chill in your room, you're going to be able to see your dresser. So it's always within her line of vision or always in her peripheral vision. She's keeping these fossils of the past around her. There's definitely unresolved things going on here. There's a lot of emotional pain, a lot of just, I'm going to keep saying this word, a lot of heaviness. And flowers usually are lively. In this context here, though, in this instance, they're not. This relationship really meant something to her. And again, it could be the person or it could have been the specific promises that were made to her. The things that you expose yourself to, the things that you see every day, the thoughts you have, they're very important. They're really gonna affect your emotions. It's very interesting to me that so far we have two things in the protagonist's home, in her sacred space, that are remnants or reminders of her past relationship. I also am curious to see if whenever she sees the flowers, if she always has this visceral of a reaction, or is it more like visceral because her friend is asking her about it and she is now prompted to kind of explain herself out loud, right? We're more at ease in our internal world, we're more chill, but if we have to like talk about our intimate thoughts out loud, it's like you get more emotional. When she says a place I don't remember, it's very, very telling of the place the protagonist is at emotionally. Very ironic because I'm sure she remembers it so much. I think she remembers it too much, in fact. This to me indicates that her feelings are so palpable. They're so real. They're at like the forefront of her existence. She can't allow herself to even think about that place because it's too much. This is a concept that I talked about in my analysis of the song Supercut by Lorde. Again, I'll link it down below. In that song, pretty much the protagonist was viewing the relationship in little chunks, in supercuts, instead of viewing it in its entirety. I made like two arguments for why there were supercuts, about whether they were intentional or not. A point that I made in that video is that sometimes you have to dilute things and take a small shot of the memories to process it, because you are not capable of taking the whole thing at once because it's too much. I'm reminded of that concept here again. I think that there is so much emotion and so much pain. That's why this is a place she can't remember. She can't fathom remembering it because it's too painful. Maybe she can later on, little by little, but there's no way she can remember the whole thing right now. The cuts are too deep. The heart was broken into too many pieces. I want to draw your attention to the diction in this particular lyric. I said, a place I don't remember. Let's discuss the word don't, because it's very important. Notice the word can't isn't used, it's the word don't. Let me tell you why this matters. The word don't means that you choose not to do something. The word can't means you are not able to do something. This means that when you use the word don't, you have a power in deciding, you have power in choice. However, with the word can't, there's no power and there is no choice. You just are not able to for whatever reason. This matters because when she says that it's a place I don't remember, she is choosing not to remember it. She still has the ability to remember. She can allow herself to go to that place in her mind, but she's choosing not to. Right? It's an active choice. It's a personal choice. This suggests that there's a lot of awareness on part of the protagonist. She has an inkling of the depth of pain she's in, right? She's choosing to block off this memory and to block off those emotions. This is a form of self-preservation. She is trying to keep herself safe from the emotional and perhaps even like mental turmoil that those memories are going to bring her. This is really heartbreaking, y'all. Like, this is very, very sad. But this is another reason why I love this song so much. There's so many intricate details and they all have meaning. They're all intentional. I don't know. I'm in awe of this song. Honestly, I think this is one of my favorite songs I've ever analyzed on this channel so far. Each word, each piece of diction in this song is oozing with emotional subtext, and I'm enjoying this song a lot. I hope you are too. If you have thoughts on the differences between the word don't and can't, please comment it down below. I'd be interested to hear your take on it. We have repetition of Oklahoma, a setting. This is reminding me of the song Cornelia Street by Taylor Swift, which I analyzed. In that song, Taylor talked about how if she were to ever break up with her current partner, she could literally never walk down Cornelia Street again. It's a street in New York. And in that video, I argued that was because Cornelia Street was a physical manifestation of their love. It's not just a street. Every crack in the sidewalk, every brick on the buildings, I'm assuming there's brick because it's New York, but I don't really know. Those are all synonymous with their love. I believe it's the same thing here. The protagonist's love story is somehow synonymous with Oklahoma. And this is more significant too because I don't believe the protagonist lives in Oklahoma. We've had so many song lyrics about Southern California. So it's a place that's separate from her usual life. That's why it's taking on like a whole new meaning. Very much like, oh, Oklahoma, it's like out there, it's over there. It's a little bit more untouchable. When you break up with someone like in the town that you're living in, you're gonna avoid like your spots and stuff, but after a while you'll get used to it and you can like walk past that cafe that you had your first date in. But if it's someplace that you don't go to often, it kind of becomes romanticized in your mind. It's not like a geographical place anymore. It's just like on a pedestal, maybe a sad pedestal, but a pedestal nonetheless. It's becoming like an otherworldly location. I think there's a lot of nostalgia going on in this song. Feeling nostalgic about a past relationship. This is not healthy to do often, because when you think about the past, you often romanticize it. It's kind of like a coping mechanism or a form of self-preservation. You remember the good parts of the situation or the relationship, but you don't necessarily remember the not so great parts, right? And if you ruminate on the positive romanticized aspects, the hyperbolic aspects that are blown out of proportion, then your perception of reality changes. That shift in perspective is going to change your emotions. Existing in a nostalgic state for a long period of time about a relationship can cause you to not get over that relationship. Verse 3. Jenny jumped into the pool. She was swimming with Nikki Lane. She said, most men don't want a woman with a legacy. It's of age. She said, you can't be a muse and be happy too. You can't blacken the pages with Russian poetry and be happy. And that scared me because I met a man who... What I love about the structure of the song is that it appears like there are different memories that all triggered a certain emotion, or that all made the protagonist think about her past relationship, and they're all being presented as like cute little sad / cute little vignettes. They're all just being packaged here, like bullet pointed for you. And that also kind of mirrors the aftermath of a breakup, because you're reminded of that person randomly. You may be okay for like 2 weeks and then someone says something or asks something and then you remember everything again. So I really enjoy how these are very specific and different moments in time, but they're all tied together. What is Jenny saying here? What's her point? First, let's talk about the first statement she made. Most men don't want a woman with a legacy, it's of age. Let's define the word legacy. The definition that I will be operating off of is something that someone has achieved that continues to exist after they stop working or die. If we are to think of Lana Del Rey as the protagonist of this song, her legacy would be her music, her lyrics, her songwriting, her art. That's her legacy. It takes a lot of hard work to create a legacy. It takes a lot of sacrifices, a lot of commitments to your craft, a lot of saying no to things in your personal life, I would assume. Here, Jenny is saying that most men don't want a woman with a legacy. You can interpret that more simply as most men maybe don't want a woman who is so entangled in her career. When you are someone who's like creating a legacy for yourself, you're not really gonna have that much time for your personal life. We can also think about that through the lens of traditional gender roles and how men and women relate to one another in romantic situations. And I'm talking about heterosexual relationships. Some men may not want the woman to work more than them or at all. We often view ambition as a very attractive characteristic for a male. With females, that quality isn't really mentioned that often, right? It's a much more desirable quality for a man to leave a legacy in the traditional point of view, right? There's a lot of conversations about this, that a lot of women who are accomplished, they have a much more difficult time finding a romantic partner if they're interested in men. There is like a concept of power play and power dynamics in that conversation as well. One party, one gender in this scenario may want more power over the other, and if someone is ambitious enough to leave behind a legacy, who's gonna have more power in that relationship? It's like a conversation. I don't want to glaze over it too much because there's a lot of nuances and people have very strong opinions about them. I'm just trying to analyze a song here, so I don't want to get too deep into that. I'm not saying that this is like the correct way to view things or that everyone views relationships in this manner. I'm just simply presenting a few things to think about in relation to this lyric, but I think it's interesting that she put that in this song. When it says it's of age, I find that to be very heartbreaking. Again, there's different ways to interpret it, but my interpretation is very sad. I'm operating off of the following definition for of age, just a distinct period of history. It's a moment in time, that's how I'm defining it. And the it here is referring to the legacy. So the legacy is of age. The legacy is for a specific moment in time. And I don't know if this is how most people interpret it, but for me, when I read that over and over again, I interpret it in one specific way. And it's that the legacy, the hard work, the beautiful world that this protagonist has created, I'm assuming it's Lana, right? Her art. It's a legacy, but it's only like important in a particular context. It's of age. It's only gonna serve her in her professional life, but it could hurt her in her personal life. It's of age. It's not meant for the time when she wants to settle down and have a substantial relationship. The legacy is like out of fashion in that context because it's no longer serving her. I hope that makes sense, but it's kind of just like the ironic nature of an ambitious woman who is leaving behind a legacy. If you have a different interpretation of that lyric, I'd be really excited to hear your perspective, so please comment it down below. She said, you can't be a muse and be happy too. When you're someone's muse, you're like inspiration for their art. A lot of artists have a muse that they maybe like draw or they get inspiration from and write poems and song lyrics, etc. To be someone's muse is indicative of having a very intimate relationship with them. Your relationship to them and your bond to them is so intimate and deep that you are inspiring art to be created. So that's what a muse is. Said here that you can't be a muse and be happy too. If we were visualizing this in the context of Lana's life, which I find myself wanting to do because there are specific people mentioned that Lana knows, so that's why I keep interpreting this as autobiographical, but of course we don't know that for sure. I'm thinking that she's referring to the romantic partner. The romantic partner is the muse for Lana's music. Like, this song was inspired by that relationship, so we have evidence, right? Like, I've never been anyone's muse, but I'm assuming here that like if you're someone's muse, the reason you can't be happy is because the lines are kind of blurred. Your existence and your loveliness and your winning personality and of course like your beauty is inspiration for art. And if they make a lot of great art when you're together, do they love you or do they love the fact that you're helping them create art that is good? I feel like there would be a lot of emotions in that sort of dynamic. Russian poetry has a reputation for being very, very sad. The way that I think about this lyric is that Jenny's like, girl, listen, you can't have this dynamic with your romantic partner of them being your muse because like they're not gonna be happy and then you're not gonna be happy. It's like literally not gonna work out. And then Jenny's like, and furthermore, you can't write these words, these lyrics that are so sad and heavy and expect to be happy. It's not just like sad words that are being written by the protagonist. The words are so heavy and dark that they're actually causing the page to darken. The emotions are so palpable within these words. Her pen is very much a sword here and it's destroying the paper. It's causing the paper to metaphorically change physically. The emotions are so deep that the ink is bleeding all over the pages, just like the writer of those words are bleeding from emotional wounds. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain. If the art that's being inspired by the muse, if that's lyrics, songs, those have to be sung very often. If that's your career, you go on tour, you sing those songs very often. So you revisit those memories over and over again. It's not like a sculpture where like you can just put it on display and like walk away. If it's like something that you have to perform, it's a much more intense sort of relationship with the artist and the muse. So here I think Jenny is kind of giving some advice to the protagonist. She's like, you can't carry on like this. The dynamic you had in that relationship where this person was your muse, like it's not really gonna work out for you in your personal life. You might create beautiful art, right? But it's not gonna be like a healthy dynamic. So that whole conversation is about kind of like how her career, her legacy, and her personal life, how they kind of relate to one another and how they kind of oppose one another as well. That's a very interesting verse. I think there's a lot of very like deep ideas that you could explore. Sounds like a very deep and important conversation that was had by that pool. Again, I think these are literal memories, but if you want to look at a pool metaphorically, it's a body of water. Water is very cleansing, so it's a positive image. Jenny is jumping into the pool, so like she is being cleansed, she is enlightened, she has the knowledge and wisdom. That's one way to view it. I don't think it's necessarily metaphorical, but you can interpret it in that way if you want, and that is completely valid. I have interpreted pools as bodies of water before in the song Buzzcut Season by Lorde, and also in Chemtrails by the Country Club by Lana Del Rey. I talked about water imagery in relation to pools in that song a lot. Water is usually a positive image, but a pool is chlorinated water, so it's not the purest form, and it's not running water, it's stagnant water, and running water is more positive. Again, I don't think that really applies to this scenario as much, but I'm just throwing that in there in case you kind of identify with that interpretation more, which again, is totally valid. And that scared me because I met a man who, so the things that Jenny is saying are hitting a nerve in the protagonist, right? She's kind of triggered by it. If you ever notice yourself getting emotional when someone says something, it's for a reason. The protagonist here was scared because she met a man who, let's see who this man is, and then we can come back and kind of figure out why she was scared. Chorus. Remember the previous lyric, it says, "Cause I met a man who said he'd come back every May just to help me if I'd paint my banisters blue. Blue banisters, ooh. Said he'd fix my weather vane, give me children, take away my pain, and paint my banisters blue, my banisters blue." Okay. Hello everyone, this is a PSA, a public service announcement. We are at the chorus. Halfway through the chorus, I do have what I would call a mild existential crisis where I reevaluate the meaning of this entire song. So for your convenience, I have categorized the interpretation of the chorus as BEC, before existential crisis, which is where I talk about how everything is like literal. I say the word literal so many times, like take a shot of water every time I say it to be hydrated. And DEC, during existential crisis, in which I uncover in a very dramatic fashion how incredibly metaphorical this song actually is. Yes, this was in fact such an intense experience that I had to create distinct time periods. I just want to note that the chorus, verse 4 and verse 5, they all start with the word "cuz." That diction is important because those are all answering the question of why she was scared by what Jenny said. The explanation for why she was scared takes 3 verses. Said he'd come back every May just to help me if I'd paint my banisters blue. So this chorus is giving us specifics of a promise that existed within this relationship. So first, let's talk about this like logistically and literally. I'm assuming that this protagonist and her romantic partner were long distance at some points in their relationship. That's why the phrase "he'd come back" is used. It's saying that no matter where they find themselves in the world, he's always going to come back at a specific moment in time during the month of May. What I think is very interesting here is that it says to help me if I'd paint. It's conditional, so it's like if she decides to paint her banisters blue, then he'll come. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just the way she chose to state it, but I do think that's interesting. That makes this situation feel a little bit more conditional. There's a little bit less certainty present, in my opinion. The word "just" is also important. That diction suggests that the reason he's coming back may not seem like important or like a worthy enough reason to other people, but he loved her so much that he made that promise. He was willing to come from the ends of the earth just to help her. So I think that blue banisters are a definition for a long list of broken promises. Perhaps painting the banisters was the first broken promise. Maybe it was the broken promise that foreshadowed other broken promises to come. Maybe the way in which it was broken gave the protagonist like a clue as to what type of dynamic she was dealing with. Maybe it was just the worst promise that was broken. Again, I'm viewing this song through the perspective of really defining things in your own life. It's kind of like when you have like a secret language with your friends and you say one word and everyone knows what it means. Like if she's in like a sad mood and her friend's like, what's wrong? And she just looks up and she's like, blue banisters. Her friend will know. She's thinking about all the broken promises. There's many different ways to interpret this. That's what resonates with me personally. The fact that there is so much specificity, the fact that this is reading like a very beautiful piece of prose, the fact that there are specific people mentioned makes this seem like a very eloquent diary entry or journal entry set to music, which is why I'm interpreting this as something natural that everyone does, which is defining things for yourself and categorizing things for yourself, especially in the context of relationships or when you feel like someone's wronged you. You kind of just like look back and think about it and you're like, that time, that promise about the banisters, that was when I knew. The way you broke that promise, that made me understand who you really were. That's kind of like the energy that I'm viewing this song with. I think that the emotion was so deep that although there are some like metaphorical things going on, the fact that the lyrics are more like realistic and straightforward with like dialogue from her friends makes it seem more intense. Because imagine if you are mad at someone and you just ignore them or you just don't talk to them as much. Compare that with being confronted with a person and just saying, I don't like you. The more direct and literal approach to situations is often indicative of more emotion, right? So the fact that this is reading more literal relatively makes me think that the emotions are deeper. It's when you don't care anymore. Like you don't care to be diplomatic. You don't want to appease anyone. You're like, hey, this is what it is. I don't care anymore. You're like at your wit's end emotionally. That's how I feel about the song, and I think that's why I appreciate it so much, because I love emotions. I love it when lyrics really explore like the thought processes involved in emotions, because there are thoughts involved in emotions. They may not be logical thoughts, but they're there. Why are the banisters blue? Again, this could be literal. Maybe she literally just wanted to paint her banisters blue, but why would he have to come back every year? Like, why is the quality of paint not good? Lana, why is it chipping so much? Get her better quality of paint. So let's talk about the color blue, because there are 3 colors associated with the banisters, and we'll get into that in a little bit. The color blue, this could have been the initial color that they agreed upon, but they never actually painted. So it's like an almost occurrence. It's like a thing that they romanticized doing together, but it never came to fruition. Metaphorically, the color blue is often synonymous with sadness. When someone is feeling blue, they're feeling sad, they're feeling down. Her romantic partner would come back and help her paint her banisters a color that is representative of sadness and feeling down. This is interesting because now the banisters are being aligned with specific emotions of the protagonist. Here, I think you can argue that they can be viewed as a reflection of the protagonist's emotions or an extension of the protagonist's emotions. Okay, I just had I had like a mini epiphany. Not an epiphany, but I had a thought. We can call it an interesting thought if you'd indulge me. Do you guys think maybe, you know how sometimes when you talk things out loud, you kind of like realize different things, like different things stick out to you? That's what's happening to me now, and I like don't know what to do right now. Okay, I'm starting to think about this song much more metaphorically. It's just so different when I talk about it out loud as opposed to me just like reading it over and over and over again, like just reading it like this. I don't know if this works or not. The banisters throughout the song are maybe just like representative of like Lana, and when he's coming to paint them blue, he is coming to exist with her in her sadness and support her. Maybe, right? This wasn't how I viewed the song initially. Again, I viewed it more like literally, but I think you could make that argument. I'm gonna try to make it right now. What is kind of like evidence for me is the conditional nature of him coming. The word if I'd paint. So maybe like if I'm feeling blue during May, he's gonna come back and help me through that sadness. Okay, you know what? Okay, I need to like regroup for a sec. I need to reapply my mascara. That's a joke. If you skipped my explanation of why I didn't upload, you won't get that joke. It's an inside joke for only the people who listened. So this is the second time I've almost had an existential crisis while analyzing a Lana Del Rey song. The other video was a Summertime Sadness video. A weather vane is like that thing on top of a building or like a farm that it kind of changes direction depending on the wind. Sometimes there's like a rooster on top just like chilling there in a very casual manner. To me personally, a weather vane is very metaphorical, like very metaphorical. It's showing the direction that the wind is coming from, and we can think about wind as perhaps the wind of change. If your weather vane is going all crazy, it could be indicative of a storm to come. Weather is a very important indicator metaphorically of emotions, of an internal state. It can also be a sort of foreshadow of what's to come. Why is her weather vane broken? That's something to think about. The fact that her weather vane is broken means that she doesn't know the direction that the wind is coming. She's oblivious to that. I think that metaphorically it's very important to be in tune with nature and to be informed about like weather patterns. I talk about this a lot. I think that nature is a very important literary device. It's not a device, but I think that nature is very important when analyzing words. Whenever nature is mentioned, I take it very, very seriously because nature is something that simply exists and it's cyclical. So if her weather vane is broken, she may not be able to notice winds of change in her life. She doesn't know if a storm is coming. It seems like she's not as intuitive with a broken weather vane. The fact that another person has to come and fix it makes me very sad. For me, the weather vane is a representation of the protagonist's intuition. Metaphorically, like winds of change coming. If someone is aware of that, they are like intuitively prepared. They would intuitively know like a change is coming. Or if a storm is coming, someone would intuitively know that a storm is coming. I'm not talking about like being psychic. What I'm saying here is that when you are in tune with yourself, you're more in tune with your intuition. You can pick up on the very subtle nuances of your life, particular dynamics in your life. The fact that her weather vane needs to be fixed suggests to me that she is sort of oblivious to those things in her life at the moment, and she wants someone to come help her fix it. This is a sort of emotional healing that has to occur in my opinion, and he was trying to emotionally help her heal. I think that's what fixing the weather vane is referring to. That's a dangerous territory to be in because I talk about this concept in the song Cardigan by Taylor Swift. The metaphors in that song are heartbreaking. They're so heartbreaking. But this reminds me of that song because it's a similar dynamic where one person is relying on the other person to be healed, and like to an extent that's okay, but it's a very dangerous and vulnerable position to be in because you're in essence like handing off yourself and your well-being to another person, and that's a very big gamble. So that's a red flag to me that makes me very sad. I want to compare the concept of fixing something with the concept of painting something. When you're painting something like the banister, you're not necessarily fixing it. It's more of like an activity. Maybe you're painting a different color, or you're just like kind of making it look cuter. So it's not necessarily broken, right? You would have to fix the brokenness before it's painted. Painting is a more leisurely activity as opposed to fixing something. This is really sad now. Why did I think that Lana Del Rey would not make a song intensely metaphorical? What was I thinking? Okay, so the fact that he's gonna come every May if she decides to paint, I think that means that if she needs emotional support during that time, he's gonna come and be there for her. And he's not gonna take her out of her sadness, out of her blueness, but he's gonna paint along with her. Oh my God. Oh my God. They're gonna exist in the blueness together. They're gonna paint it, they're gonna create it, they're gonna maintain it. Because when you're painting with the blue, you're creating more blue, you're maintaining it. But I guess like she doesn't need him to heal her in that instance. She just needs someone to like support her and to like stand alongside of her. So that's why they're painting, oh my God. And then, I'm sorry, I'm like having an epiphany right now. And then there's a progression with the weather vane because he existed with her in her sadness and supported her, which like was really nice of him. They metaphorically did arts and crafts together by painting the banister blue. There's a progression now where he is trying to fix her. The sort of emotional distress represented by the weather vane is more internal. What I'm saying is like your intuition, which is what I'm aligning the weather vane with. Your intuition is in your soul, which is the like purest and deepest part of your being, in my opinion. So it's like he helped her, or he supported her through her blueness, through her sadness. But then there's a progression where he promised to fix like her soul. I am so emo right now. I'm gonna do a side part. I'm so emo right now. Give me my MySpace back. I hope that y'all get that reference. If you're Gen Z, you probably don't, but it's okay. I still love you. You're great. MySpace was a vibe. Okay, let's see what else he said. Let's see what else he said. He said he's gonna give her children and take away her pain. So he was going to help her just survive while in her depression. That's the blue. And then after that, there's more depth. He was going to help kind of heal her on a more internal level in regards to like her soul, which is the essence of your being. You should not hand over control of your soul to anyone. That's like another song that I'm gonna be posting soon, Coney Island by Taylor Swift. There's a lyric that says, break my soul into, and I talk about how you can't break a soul, you can only break a heart. But the fact that your soul is breaking, that's like the most intense level of pain, because a soul to me is not breakable. It's just like energy that kind of is attracted to one another. So like if you try to break it, you can't. It's kind of like slime, but cute slime, but like energy slime. And if you try to break it, you can't because it's held together. Like a heart can break, but a soul is not breakable. And that concept is in the song Coney Island by Taylor Swift. But now we're talking about souls again. And I'm interpreting this as her like needing him to fix her soul. Girl. So my interpretation of this whole song just changed drastically. Talk about a complete 180, like a 420 or a 630. I don't know, are those like skateboard tricks? I don't know. I'm not a person who does sports or like activity that requires me to like jump in any way. I'm just trying to like be comedic in a very sad setting. This is such a sad song. Let me tell you why I'm interpreting everything differently now. Now when she says, and paint my banisters blue, that to me means that he is promising to stay with her in her sadness. This song means so much more now. My God, my eyeliner is like running. I'm not crying, I'm just stressed. Isn't this a very fun journey for y'all? This is turning into a bit of a chaotic interpretation. Sometimes that happens, okay? Art is wild. Initially, I interpreted blue banisters as being representative of many broken promises. And I interpret it as a literal thing at one point in time. I think that could still be true, again, because of just the intimate nature of this and how it feels like a journal entry. However, for me, the blue banisters are morphing into a very heavy metaphor, and it could have started as an actual promise, and now it is a very intense metaphor where painting banisters blue means existing alongside the protagonist while she is sad. The blue paint is representative of her sadness, and the fact that he is painting alongside her means that he is choosing to exist in her sadness with her. Not necessarily heal her, but just heal her by being there for her. The blue is still present, so the sadness is still present. And the fact that they're painting it means that the blueness is being maintained, it's not going anywhere. The fact that the blue is being painted every May means that this is like a seasonal or a repetitive sort of sadness that happens during a specific time period. So whenever she needs him to let her be sad, he's gonna support her by also picking up the paintbrush. This song is about having to rely on someone emotionally to start to heal, which, you know, you need a support system, you do. When that support system is someone that you're involved with romantically. Let's go back really quick. Remember that she said what Jenny said by the pool scared her. So first she told us it scared her because she met a man that promised to heal her, that promised to exist alongside of her in her sadness, painting the banisters blue, and that also promised her a future, a family, right? That's a very significant promise to someone, the promise of a family, especially to someone who is really wanting that for themselves. I'm sure when this relationship ended, it was even more heartbreaking because she probably saw an image of her future kids with him and, you know, him being the father of her kids fade away in front of her. So that definitely adds another layer to this. I'm assuming that man was her muse. I'm assuming that she was writing sad lyrics while with this person. And when you're existing in a sort of sadness, even if it's for your art or for your job, it's hard to contain that sadness to your job. It can very easily bleed into your personal life. When her friend Jenny said all of these things, they struck a chord with the protagonist. In that instance where she's having that conversation by the pool, she's kind of realizing why it may have fell apart. Like, again, I'm just kind of extrapolating here. Maybe she's realizing that it didn't work out because she kept using him as her muse, because she had to exist in a sort of sadness for her art, and she brought that sadness home with her. Maybe she's scared because she realizes she maybe played a part she didn't realize in the dynamic of the relationship. I think the things that Jenny said really helped broaden the perspective of the protagonist. It allowed the protagonist to kind of view the demise of her relationship in a different way, which now makes me place more significance on the water imagery and the fact that Jenny is jumping into the water. Nikki Lane was also in the water, but it appears as though the protagonist wasn't in the water. So they're both being cleansed in the water while the protagonist is not being cleansed in the water. Just like that one little thing that I kind of changed my mind about is making me view this song in a much more in-depth way, and I am not okay right now. I need to go listen to a very happy song when I'm done recording this. What should I go listen to? I don't know. So that's the sort of fear the chorus is about. So the chorus is kind of suggesting this sort of clarity the protagonist has about the hand she might have played in the demise of the relationship. That's one way to look at it. Okay, verse 4. Because there's a hole that's in my heart, all my women try and heal. They're doing a good job convincing me that it's not real. It's heat, lightning. She's not mentioning that her heart is broken, but there's like a hole in it. When we think about a broken heart, we usually think about it breaking into two pieces, and that's very sad, but you can probably get metaphorical super glue and glue it back together and put it back at a very specific angle, and no one will know. No one will know. You're fine. But if there's a hole in your heart, I think that it was like ruptured by like a sharp object. That's what would cause a hole. You can patch it up, but it's a much more intense sort of imagery. It's like her heart was stabbed instead of broken. I think something breaking is violent, but in relation to stabbing and like to create a puncture wound, the stabbing imagery is much more intense and dramatic. When we view like a heart breaking, it's usually like this, and it just kind of stays like this, like two little bowls. Do you know what I mean? The contents inside the heart don't spill out, they're just exposed to the elements. But if there's a hole in the heart, all the contents of the heart are flowing out, so the heart is empty. So there's a lot of very heartbreaking imagery here. The protagonist was very hurt. It ruined her. All my women try and heal. They're doing a good job convincing me that it's not real. The phrase all my women is referring to her support system, her close friends. They're there for her. They are stepping in to try to help her heal. It's interesting that one person, one man, was trying to help her heal, but when that didn't pan out, now multiple people have to step into his shoes because her pain is worse now. This is the same sort of dynamic and progression that was in the song Cardigan. Not exactly the same, but it's very reminiscent of that. I'm gonna say the same thing I said in that analysis video. It can be argued that the protagonist would have been better off without that relationship because the pain that needed healing initially was less than the pain that's here and now. It's heat lightning.
Heat lightning is also known as silent lightning. Heat lightning is lightning generated by a thunderstorm so distant that its light outruns the slower moving sound waves from the storm. So it's like a thunderstorm without sound. You only see the light. Every source I looked at says that heat lightning is actually a myth, but we will still be operating off of its definition for the purposes of this song. In actuality, all lightning produces thunder, but when people think that it's heat lightning, it's due to the distance that the storm is at. They cannot hear the crash of the thunder. That is very significant in this context. There was a reference to thunder in the song Mariner's Apartment Complex. I'll link my analysis down below for you. In that context, Lana was aligning herself with thunder as someone powerful, so it was used in a very different way. Here, I'm interpreting heat lightning as a very somber and sad sort of image. I think heat lightning here is referring to the pain that she's feeling. In a thunderstorm, we have two elements. We have lightning and we have thunder. Thunder is loud. It's angry. You can hear it anywhere you are. If you're inside, you hear it. If you're outside, you hear it. Lightning definitely puts on a show, and it can be startling to witness, but you can't really see it if you're inside in an interior room. You would need to be by a window, or you would need to be outside. I will say that a lightning aspect of this is much more dangerous. Lightning can strike like a tall building. A strike of lightning, if it hits a very dry area of land, it can cause a fire. It can spark a fire, right? But heat lightning doesn't have the sound. We're only left with the lightning part, the more dangerous part. Oh my God, this is so intense. So she's left with the part of the pain that is quiet, but more dangerous. Isn't that intense, y'all? Like, this is so beautiful. It's very, very sad, but this expresses how she's feeling so eloquently. She literally is left with the dangerous part of the pain, and it's the part that is quiet, so no one knows it. She is suffering in silence, and she's in danger, right? She needs to get inside and not be the tallest thing. Go into an interior room, girl. The concept of heat lightning makes me feel like you're holding your breath because you see the light and you're waiting for the sound, but it doesn't come. So she's just kind of like holding her breath emotionally, holding on to this pain. I would view like the sound from the thunder as kind of being a release of some sort, right? Her friends are trying to comfort her. It's kind of helping her a little bit. It's not really like healing her. I would say it's mostly numbing her. You know, your friends and family can only do so much. At the end of the day, you just have to give these things time. As always, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you have a different take on this? Tell me. I want to know.
Verse 5. Because there's a man that's in my past. There's a man that's still right here. He's real enough to touch. In my darkest nights, he's shining. I really enjoy this verse a lot. Her former love interest exists in her past, in her memories. She remembers him when she looks at that picture of her on that tractor, and also when she looks at those dried flowers, right? There's a man that's still right here. He's real enough to touch. She's not over this. You can make the argument that she's not over the person, or it could be the fact that she's not over the promises he made to her. He's in the past, but she's still in it. She is still existing within the thought patterns, within the emotions, within the wants and the expectations of that relationship. That's why he is right here. She hasn't been able to leave it behind yet. Which is, I think, why she has reminders of that relationship in her house. It's very real for her still. It's kind of tangible to her. Like, a person is right there. You can touch the person. It's like a tangible thing. The emotions expressed here are very, very deep. They're all consuming for the protagonist, which is why they're being projected and manifested outwardly in the physical world. In my darkest nights, he's shining. This goes back to the nostalgia I was talking about earlier and romanticizing your past. So her darkest nights are the nights where she feels the most sad. She feels the heaviest emotionally, right? This is dark imagery. This is not positive. This kind of is parallel to the image of her words darkening the page, the Russian poetry. I interpret the Russian poetry darkening the page and this in a similar manner, where the emotions felt cannot be contained in the entity they are in. They cannot be contained in the confines of the letters making up the words, and they cannot be confined within the protagonist. The emotions are so deep and so dark that they are kind of being propelled outwards. It's an extension of the protagonist, but they are kind of being projected and propelled outwards, and they are manifesting in a physical form. So you can view the darkness that she's in as just being her emotions kind of coming out of her and kind of being suspended in the air around her. This is really heavy. It's Like, it's sad, but it's deeper than sad. I say this because of the weather vane image. I really feel strongly that the weather vane is indicative of an intuitive state, an intuitive nature in a person, and I really do align that with someone's soul. So the fact that the promise of healing of her soul was taken away, that to me is very significant, and that's why I believe the sadness here is to a greater caliber or to a greater depth than normal sadness. Yeah, but in that sort of sadness, he's shining, he's bright. This is light imagery, but it's false. He's bright to her because she is alone and desperate for some light in this darkness. And I'm sure it's kind of like off-putting to be in that darkness. So any sort of light is something that she would want. She doesn't really care who's on the other side of that flashlight in the dark, right? When you're in a very low point, sometimes you want someone back that isn't actually good for you. So he is still what she goes back to in her mind when she's in her vulnerable state. He really promised her a lot of very big things. Healing of her soul, kids. Those aren't just like small things. Those are life-altering things. It's just very heartbreaking. Verse 6. Jenny was smoking by the pool. We were riding with Nikki Lane. I said, I'm scared of the Santa Clarita fires. I wish that it would rain. I said, the power of us three can bring absolutely anything except one thing. The diamonds, the rust, and the rain. The thing that washes away the pain. But that's okay, cause Jenny and Nikki Lane are back again. Let's see if Jenny imparts more wisdom. Jenny was smoking by the pool. We were riding with Nikki Lane. So they're hanging out again. It's a relatively casual scenario. Lana, or the protagonist, is saying that I'm scared of the Santa Clarita fires. I wish that it would rain.
So here we have mention of the Santa Clarita fires. Santa Clarita is located north of Los Angeles in California. That's in the United States. I know I have some international viewers, so I want to make sure I provide sufficient context for everyone. If you actually go to Lana Del Rey's Instagram page and pretend you're a detective for a sec, if you go all the way down to August 13th, 2020, you'll see a carousel that she posted. The caption says, contemplating at Costco the Santa Clarita fires. And Costco, if you're not from the States, is like a really big grocery store. It sells items in bulk. And we have a picture of the fires. So while she was at the store just doing what you do normally, running your errands, she was able to see that fire. Normally when we have fire mentioned in a song, I will talk about fire imagery and the connotation of a fire, and I will like kind of get into what that may mean. I am not going to do that here. I don't think it's appropriate. This was a real fire. This is not a fictional fire made up to further the plot of this song or anything like that. What I will be doing is just stating some facts about the fire, just so you have some context about what Lana is referring to. I just don't feel comfortable talking about this in any sort of metaphorical or figurative way. I think it's disrespectful, and it's kind of like I would be exploiting someone's trauma. I don't want to say how this would make anyone feel. It's not my place. So here are just some facts for context. I will link the sources I use down below if you want some more information about it. So going off of the date of this Instagram post, August 13th, 2020, I Googled August 13th, 2020 Santa Clarita fires. Lots of headlines popped up, as you see here. Really briefly, the fire that Lana's referring to is called the Lake Fire, and it burned from August 12th, 2020 to September 28th, 2020. By the end, the burned area was 31,089 acres. There were buildings that were destroyed, as you see listed here, and there were non-fatal injuries, according to Wikipedia, of 4 firefighters. This fire was part of the 2020 California wildfire season, which, again, according to Wikipedia, was a record-setting year of wildfires in California. That's all I'm going to be saying about that. I just wanted to provide context. It must be important for one reason or another to Lana because she incorporated it into this song. She tells us that she was scared by it, and she tells us that she wanted it to end. She wanted it to rain. If anything, this simply shows the time period approximately that this song was written. You can maybe guess it was in August 2020.
I also enjoy that in this verse we have the protagonist saying things. There's like dialogue that she's saying now. I said, the power of us three can bring absolutely anything except that one thing. Together, they can do anything. They're powerful. They're very connected. That's very beautiful. We stand a good female friendship dynamic, except that one thing. The one thing that I think she's referring to is 2 lines down, where it says, the thing that washes away the pain.
Okay, let's talk about the lyric, the diamonds, the rust, and the rain, the thing that washes away the pain. This lyric to me is a little bit more ambiguous. I don't really know where I stand on my opinion about this, to be honest. I'm gonna tell you a few thoughts I have, and feel free to tell me what you think down below. For me, it seems like the diamonds, the rust, and the rain are synonymous with the thing that washes away the pain. I have 2 main ways I'm viewing it. My first way is I'm just kind of trying to define these 3 entities and trying to figure out what they have in common. The other thing that I ended up Googling diamonds, rust, rain, and Lana Del Rey's name. I know she references things. I'm not super familiar with Lana's earlier works. I became a fan when NFR came out, so I'm still trying to get up to speed on everything. There's a song called Diamonds and Rust by Joan Baez that may work into this somehow, so I'm going to discuss that as well. But first, let's talk about these 3 words. When I think of diamonds in the context of taking away someone's pain, I think of like retail therapy, distracting yourself with material possessions, with like extravagant experiences, that sort of thing. When I think about rust, it's kind of sad. Rust is like a coating. It's usually yellowish or brown or sometimes a little bit red, and it forms on iron or steel. This occurs due to a chemical reaction called oxidation. And usually when something is rusted, we view it as old. It's lost its shine, right? So this is not a positive sort of word. It has a negative connotation. It's kind of somber in a way. You can also think of rust as covering up the true nature of something, covering up the beauty. So perhaps the pain is represented by the rust, and the true nature of the protagonist is what's under this metaphorical rust, right? The rust needs to be washed away, and then her true self will emerge again. That's definitely one way to view it. When I think of rusted items, I kind of view them as abandoned and forgotten, which is how the protagonist of the song may be feeling. She has her support system, right? But she may feel abandoned and forgotten by her former love. So to me, that's in stark contrast to diamonds, which are extravagant. And then when I think of rain, I think of water imagery, which is usually very positive. Rain itself, I view as very cleansing. It can kind of clear out whatever energy was there before after it rains, especially in a very humid climate. The air feels fresh. So it's just kind of like a renewal of some sort. It washes things away. But the rain I view as very positive, especially in this context. I also think maybe like it's possible that since this is a friend group that is 3 people and these are 3 words, maybe each of them connect with a word in one way. Like maybe this is an inside, not joke, but an inside like thing between them that holds more significance for the people involved. And now I want to talk about the song Diamonds and Rust by Joan Baez. We know that Lana does sometimes refer to other songs in her songs, so this could be a possibility. Lana actually joined Joan Baez to sing this song. I'm going to post a link to the YouTube video of this performance. It occurred in October 2019. So she definitely knows this song exists, right? The lyrics to this song, they're very beautiful. This song begins with the lyrics, "Well, I'll be damned, here comes your ghost again." So it's about a past relationship. I just want to point out the part where it says diamonds and rust. It says, 10 years ago, I bought you some cufflinks. You brought me something. We both know what memories can bring. They bring diamonds and rust. And then the other instance it says diamonds and rust is at the end of the song, where it says, I actually really love this whole last verse. I'm just going to read it to you guys. Now you're telling me you're not nostalgic. Then give me another word for it. You who are so good with words and at keeping things vague, because I need some of that vagueness now. It's all coming back too clearly. Yes, I loved you dearly. And if you're offering me diamonds and rust, I've already paid. This is a really beautiful song. I honestly didn't know it existed before this, but I'm going to go listen to this on repeat for a while. So I'm just grateful that I found this song. It's very exquisite. But here we see diamonds and rust being used to describe something not pleasant, right? Which makes sense because these 2 words are in opposition to one another. This is a very interesting juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is when things are set side by side for the purpose of comparison. We have this extravagant nature of diamonds. I wouldn't say like the connotation of diamonds is pure, but it's definitely extravagant and it could be enjoyable. This is like similar to what I discussed when I analyzed the song Champagne Problems by Taylor Swift. And I was talking about gold and how gold has value, but for me, it's not really synonymous with love because it's kind of like a stagnant image. Right? I would personally view nature and something growing and lively as being more synonymous with love. So for me personally, that's why I don't think diamonds have a connotation of like a very deep love. It can be. It really, really can. This is just my own personal bias. The point here is that diamonds have a starkly opposing connotation than rust. Diamonds have value. Rust diminishes the value of any item it's on. So in this song by Joan Baez, the protagonist is getting diamonds and rust from her ex-love. He's giving her something that seems like it could be of value, but it's really not of value. It's actually diminished in value. These two words are meant to show, in my opinion, that there is like a mismatch of some sort. This energy is not balanced. Perhaps from the outside looking in, it may look extravagant and fun, but at the core of this dynamic, it's rust. There's nothing of value. It's kind of just not been taken care of anymore. We can look at this lyric as being a reference to this song by Joan Baez, especially since Lana literally came on stage and sang this song. It's possible she just finds a lot of value in this song, so she's mentioning it here. It would definitely make sense. It's about a love that has ended. Lana could very much be feeling the feelings expressed in this song about her breakup. And then rain, I would still interpret the same way as being a cleansing of some sort. This cleansing is happening after the feelings she's feeling associated with the words diamonds and rust. So those are my thoughts about this particular lyric. It's really, really interesting. For me, I think I'm viewing it more as a reference to the song because there's just more emotion in that interpretation. So that's where I stand with this right now. But please let me know what your thoughts are down below.
Chorus, part 2. Now when the weather turns to May, all my sisters come to paint my banisters green, my blue banisters gray. Tex and Mix are in the bay, Chucky's making birthday cake, chickens running bare feet, there's a baby on the way, and now my blue banisters are green and gray. When she sings that last part of this verse, that last line, there's that little instrumental piano. It's hauntingly beautiful. It's absolutely exquisite. Musically, melodically, and just her voice from that part that I just mentioned all throughout the last verse, they're my favorite parts of the song. I think they're the most intricate and emotive, especially the last verse where she skips the season of spring. I'll get to that in a second. This is chorus part 2 because it's kind of parallel to the first chorus where the protagonist explained how her former romantic partner had made all of these promises to help her heal. Now the guy is gone, right? In his place are the protagonist's close friends, her sisters. I love that the word sisters are used. It shows a lot of unity. Her friends are like her family. Now when the weather turns to May, again, this could be literal or metaphorical. Let's talk about the literal interpretation first. The protagonist could be reminded of her past relationship to a greater intensity during the month of May. Maybe they broke up during that month. Maybe he made the promises during that month. Significant things could have happened in that month. So whenever it rolls around, she thinks of him more deeply, and that's when she needs more emotional support. However, when I interpreted the chorus like the second time around after I changed my interpretation a little bit, I talked about how it was kind of strange that the word if was used when he was coming in May. I think that instead of this being a specific month, the month of May is just synonymous with her feeling sad. She needs people just to stand beside her while she feels her sadness. That's the more metaphorical way to view this. All of her sisters, all of her girlfriends, they're coming to help paint. Remember earlier I said the act of painting just means that they're existing alongside of her. They're not healing her, they're not taking away the problem, they're not fixing it, but they are kind of like validating her in a way. They're allowing her to paint and they're painting alongside of her. So they're showing support. It's the least helpful thing to be like, just be happy, just be fine. Like, no, that's not something that's helpful. I have a very big vendetta against toxic positivity. I think that it's very, very harmful and it's like the only controversial thing I've ever tweeted about. I usually tweet about like Hillary Duff and MySpace and song lyrics, of course, but I really think that toxic positivity, which is just telling people to be happy and everything's okay and just smile, you're not really sad. I think that sort of perspective is very damaging, and it can cause people to have very unhealthy coping mechanisms with their mental health, and it invalidates people's very strong emotions. When people are invalidated in how they feel, they think that they're the one with the problem when they're not. And when someone is in an altered state of existence, when they're very depressed or very anxious, etc., when they're in that state and when you tell them that they're wrong and they think that they're the problem, you mix those together, the outcome is not going to be good. It's not going to be healthy. It's only going to prolong the problem and take it to an intensity that may become very dangerous. I'm going to stop ranting about toxic positivity. My point here is that I am a stan of validating people's feelings. Of course, I think you should try to, get help if you're feeling very sad and do your best to not exist in it longer than necessary. However, I really respect anyone who validates other people's emotions, and that is what the act of painting represents here to me. They are not telling her, stop painting blue. Blue is a sad color. Get it together. Paint it pink. Paint it yellow. Yellow is happy. Pink is cute. Paint it sage green, because that's everyone's new favorite color apparently. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I was influenced as well. I love sage green. It is very pleasant to look at. They are allowing her to exist in her blueness, or to exist in the act of painting. They're showing support. So to me, that's validation of her emotional state, and I think that's very beautiful. I really, really do. Instead of painting it blue, they're helping her paint it green. Green is a very lively color in my opinion. It's the color of plants. It's the color we associate with nature. This is happening in May, which means that it's happening in spring, and spring is a time of renewal and rebirth. Spring is a very positive time symbolically. In the song Ivy by Taylor Swift that I analyzed, I talked about the importance of spring and how in that song it was represented in a negative way. The positivity was kind of inverted. Here we have her friends trying to bring forth some positive emotions and positive vibes. I don't think this is toxic positivity. They are just suggesting or trying to paint with a better color. They're trying to just alter and shift the perspective or the emotional state a little bit. So we're going from a color that connotes a lot of sadness into a color that connotes liveliness, nature, and rebirth. That is a beautiful progression. However, the next line says, my blue banister is gray. While her friends are trying to paint these banisters green, the lively color of spring, they're not really succeeding because the protagonist's perspective cannot really catch that greenness yet. She's not there yet. She is seeing the green as gray. Perspective in life is everything. You can show a group of people an apple and everyone's going to interpret it in a different way. They're going to view it from a different angle. They're going to have biases about that apple. Maybe they're a hater, maybe they're an apple stan. I don't know. I'm talking about the fruit, not like the computer products, but people view that differently too. So you can view the painting of the green as her friends gently trying to help shift her out of her depressive state. But the protagonist isn't in a place emotionally or perhaps mentally to view the green as green. She can only interpret it as gray right now. When we compare blue to gray, they're both connoting a sort of sadness to me. The color blue is more traditional in the sense of representing sadness. When I think of the color gray, in terms of emotions, I think of a gray sky and I think of storms, which is interesting because we did have some rain imagery earlier. The weather pane reminds me of storms as well. I'm imagining the weather pane in a gray sky that's stormy right now. That's a very heartbreaking image to think about in this context. Here's a few ways to think about the color gray here. The color gray to me can also mean mixed emotions. There's a saying, some things aren't black and white, they're gray. So the protagonist could very well be existing in a gray area right now, emotionally or even mentally. She knows that her former romantic partner is in the past, but she's still thinking about them, and sometimes he seems bright to her. So she's in a gray area. She's trying to come to terms with that relationship ending. Color gray also makes me think that the protagonist just feels muddled in her emotions, confused, mixed up in her emotions. She's able to see it differently than before, which I think is positive. It's not still blue. There is a change that's happening, which is good. She's not stagnant, but she's still sad. And you know what? I do still think that there was a promise of painting banisters. I still think that this image of a banister, or this symbol, I guess, is being reclaimed and used metaphorically, reclaiming those broken promises. Her friends are stepping in to fulfill those promises. We still have that symbol of a banister. They're painting that symbol. It's kind of like when you break up with someone, you try to reclaim certain things you did with them. Perhaps if you made a specific recipe only with them and it's a really delicious recipe, so you don't want to stop making it, something you might do is invite your close friends over and create new memories and redefine that recipe. You are replacing the association you had to your former partner. It could be a similar thing here. Perhaps the banisters were really like a promise, a literal promise that was made. She's using that and reclaiming that sad thing, that broken promise of painting the banisters, and she is allowing it to be a symbol that has progression in the song because it's being painted different colors and it's being painted by different people. Perhaps the person the song is about, I would make an educated guess that when they hear about the banisters, they are going to understand the song to a much greater degree than we do. Tex and Max are in the Bay. I'm assuming that the protagonist, Lana, is in Southern California again, so the Bay would be like San Francisco, the Bay Area, that's Northern California. I'm assuming Tex and Max are like her friends, and those are like cute nicknames. Chucky's making birthday cake. What we see here is a progression of life. Life is moving forward. Their friend Chucky is making birthday cake. The fact that it's a birthday cake shows that time has passed and they're moving forward, they're celebrating, that's good. Birthday cake connotes a jovial occurrence. Chickens running bare feet, there's a baby on the way. That lyric to me shows that there's like domestication occurring. One of her friends is having a baby. This is all showing a progression of life. It's very beautiful. A lot of times when you're sad, you isolate yourself from life, but she's recognizing that life events are happening, friends are visiting, celebrations are occurring. So she is kind of in tune with the nuances of life right now. So that's a very positive and good sign in my opinion. And now my blue banisters are green and gray. That's very beautiful. I think the most significant thing is that her banisters are no longer blue. Again, gray is sadness, but the blue sadness is what I associated more with the time she spent with her former romantic partner. This to me shows that she's maybe starting to see little shadings of green within the gray as well. Healing is on the way. Last verse. Summer comes, winter goes. Spring, I skip. God knows. Summer comes, winter goes. Spring, I sleep. Heaven knows. Every time it turns to May, all my sisters fly to me to paint. Paint. I think that this is lyrically my favorite Lana Del Rey song I've analyzed so far. It's perfect, especially when we pair the emotions in this song to the melody, to the nuances of the instrumentals, to her voice, to her beautiful voice. Let's break down this last verse and then we're gonna sum everything up. Summer comes, winter goes. This is showing the progression of time. Spring I skip, God knows. The springtime here is synonymous with sadness. It's also, I think, a time in which something significant happened in her relationship. I'm gonna assume that's when they broke up. It's like a reminder of the pain. The pain is so palpable that she is simply opting out of that season. She's like, you know what, nature? No, I do not stand seasons right now. Spring is canceled. When she says spring I skip, the first time I heard that, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I love listening to this last verse on repeat. It's so beautiful. It's so sad. The phrase I skip, it's so simple. It's so simple. It holds so much meaning. It's the type of thing you say after you've cried for a very long time, like for weeks, and you've finally come to a conclusion and you're just like, spring I skip. It's like she's healing, but she still can't face spring. When it says God knows, this to me just shows the intensity and the depth of the pain being felt. She's like, nature, I am skipping spring. Like, I'm so sorry. And then God's like, I get it. Girl, it's chill. Skip it. You're excused. You're excused. Summer comes, winter goes. We have our repetition of that lyric. Next, it says, spring I sleep. Heaven knows. This is really important. This is like the song Ivy by Taylor Swift because we have inversion of the positive symbolism of spring. Spring is a time when animals come out of hibernation, like literally. So the fact that she is going into a sort of hibernation is very ironic. That sort of inversion of a very well-known symbol of spring is very telling. She's not okay. Again, this is showing the depth of pain she's feeling. She is literally opting out. When you sleep, you are in a different state of existence. You are not knowledgeable about what's going on in the outside world. Your eyes are closed, so you are like in a sort of darkness. You could be in a dreamlike state. You're just existing in an altered sort of existence. So God is like, yes, girl, skip spring, and then heaven's like, girl, I get it. Her pain is so deep that it's being validated by divine entities. Every time it turns to May, all my sisters fly to me to paint. Again, this could be a time that she needs support. Maybe she has a lot of memories, bad memories that come up during May, or this could just be any time where she's feeling sad. And I say that again because when her love interest was going to come in May, it was conditional. So that's why I interpreted that conditional nature of being dependent on her emotional state, and why you can view May as just being an emotional state. She is still not fully healed. She still needs to opt out of the entire season of spring, which makes me sad because there's a lot of cute spring fashion. To quote the humble philosopher Miranda Priestley, florals for spring, groundbreaking. You know what? It's okay. She has to take the steps necessary to heal. God and heaven have validated this, so. And also heaven is literally a setting, a divine setting. So I think it's very wonderful that a divine entity, God, and a divine setting, an entire setting, is also validating her emotions. I think that's very good. This is the opposite of toxic positivity, like very intense validation. So now when she's in this sadness or within this particular literal time period, she still has support. It's just a different type. Instead of a love interest, it's her sisters, her close friends. They are gonna come from wherever they are. They're gonna fly over to her, probably in Southern California, and they're gonna paint. That means, again, they're going to exist with her in her sadness and support her. And that's the last verse. Let's do a quick summary because I feel like that was all over the place. The song Blue Banisters is about the aftermath after a relationship has ended. And it's the emotional aftermath. It's the nostalgia, the romanticizing of the past relationship. It's about broken promises and having other people fill the shoes of your romantic partner and fulfilling their broken promises. He was not able to bring those promises to fruition, but other people are. Notice he promised her babies. He was not able to fulfill that promise. There is still a baby in her life. One of her friends had a child. She is still getting things in life. She's still having those promises fulfilled, but it's in a different way, right? Life can be very funny. I really appreciate how this song is both metaphorical and literal at the same time, at least for me. I really did kind of shift my perspective on the song as I was analyzing it out loud. I think whatever color is on the banister is reflective of the protagonist's internal state. It's like an extension of her emotions and her mental state. I think this song has a lot to do with mental health, with emotional health, with needing support systems. The song is very beautiful. It's very, very heartbreaking. This song is just exquisite. Let me know your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoy this. I know I kind of switched my interpretation a little bit in the middle, but I hope you still found value in this video. Please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and to subscribe if you haven't already, if you want. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day or night. I don't know. Bye!